next section is deep dive, but if you want to take questions while we're setting up, Tim. Yeah.
Just for me. Yeah.
How do you deal with multiple cloud-based storages? Because you see, Creative Cloud gives you storage, I believe, so that multiple teams can edit the document at the same time. But then you have something like Dropbox or Google Drive.
Yeah.
So where do you actually, because you will end up with that screenshot what you gave of, again, so how do you manage that?
That I guess that's about the governance and synchronizing how we do that. So G Suite might not be the right platform to collaborate on Adobe products. But what it does is it makes sure that when we have finished, that it synchronizes to our team drives, to our file structure. There are other tools out there as well that we're working with, that things like, let me get it right, Abstract. Abstract is a tool that does versioning, and then we can sort of back up other drives and files along the way. Like I said, that bit's not perfect yet, and we're still exploring it.
So the first one is actually about Jamboard, and somebody's asked, is there a way to pilot or test Jamboard? So over to you, Lisa, is there a way to?
Yes, there is. We have a series of Jamboards that we can actually loan for you for up to 2 weeks. You can have them on site. You can test them in your own environment to give you a chance to actually bring them into meetings and get staff actually using the Jamboard interactively during sessions.
And is there a way, say for customers that maybe before that step, maybe they'd seen it here, they wanted their team to see it, is there a demo space in Google or here that they could?
Yeah, so
he asks knowing the answer.
Yeah, so there's a number of demo spaces within the Google buildings in central London. We as BenQ are based in Oxford as well, so if you want to take a trip out to Oxford, we do have an experience centre there for Jamboard as well. Cool,
okay. And as I said, guys, if you have questions from the floor, I do want to mix and match, so feel free to stick your hands up. This is one for Tim. Does your financial team use Google Sheets?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I think that's an interesting one because it's rare to come across that, and I had a conversation with someone earlier on, from a customer of ours, Whistles, and the challenge of of financial teams and wanting to stick with Excel.
Yeah, it was not, I won't say one of the more painful parts of the process, but it was definitely there were more learnings for the financial team, for the finance team. To go
and for other teams maybe in the
organization. Yeah, because there was an instant, well, we can't do that on Sheets. Well, you can do it on Sheets. There just might be a slightly different method to do it on Sheets. Yeah. But when there may be certain functions that they need Excel for, but pretty much 95% of what they do on a day-to-day basis can now be done in Sheets.
Yeah, and it's interesting because obviously I worked with your team on that, and it was interesting. They're probably one of the most engaging financial teams I've ever come across. That photo of the super happy people, that's the financial team.
And every day.
Yeah, every day they're super bubbly people. And it's just interesting, like they really engage with that. And when we did the transformation lab, they were like mini transformation labs that we ran with the teams. It was amazing how many of their documents they had already moved over or attempted to move over to Google Sheets. So they're really engaging with the process. But I think a lot of that had to do with how we did, how ourselves and you did the whole transformation, and there was training. There was training in Dubai, Manchester, and London within the same week. So everybody was supported. All of the users were supported and trained within the same time period. Nobody felt left out, and I think that was really important.
I think the original approach was we would like to do this rather than we're going to do this.
Yeah,
it's just a little bit of language difference there.
Yeah,
but makes such a big difference.
A little difference goes a long way, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. So another Jamboard question: what are the top 3 use cases for Jamboard in a business? I'm putting you on the spot there.
Okay.
Our editorial one maybe is the demo. That's one.
So
or that you see maybe
top 3 use cases. So we see a lot of design companies kind of using the Jamboard for that basically the idea dump. So when you've got the idea, you want to sketch it out on paper. So we see design agencies using them. Also, we've had an influx within the retail environment as well. So retail are using them for a lot of process and a lot of flow. And a lot of brands that design apps use them as well. So again, architects on that side of things are using them to map out plan and process that sits around that side of things as well.
Interesting. Any questions from the floor? I see one there. If someone wants to get a mic. I don't want to just do the cards, so make sure I'm balancing it. And maybe if people, I didn't make people do this earlier, so you're the first. But maybe just let us know where you're from or the company, just for the speakers.
Yeah. So just going back on to what Lisa is referring to with the design.
What's your name?
Ethan, sorry. And I work at Moo, which is like a design and print company. So going back to the Jamboard, for example, we've got 5 different offices. So we've got 4 in the US and 1 in the UK. And at the moment, our version of a whiteboard is like a special coating on a wall that we write on with board pens. But in terms of having these Jamboards where you can be collaborative with people that are also working at home on a mobile device, I guess my question would be that if you've got multiple different rooms within a HQ and different offices, what would the pricing be like if you're looking at maybe like 15 meeting rooms in a single office?
Yeah, so we can basically put price breaks in place that sit for larger volumes.
It increases in price the more you buy. No. Wait a second, that's counterintuitive. Did you have a follow-up one, or no? Do you want to add something? Sorry.
After you. You mentioned it, and the neat little trick of capturing, circling stuff and putting it to one side. Is there any view to being able to extend artboard sizes?
No, at the moment they're keeping it very much to kind of the 55-inch space rather than having an infinite canvas.
Okay.
An infinite canvas can sometimes be really hard to manage when you try to remove the data. So when you save it as a PDF or you're removing the content, it then, an infinite canvas doesn't really work for that.
But you're not allowed to ask questions.
Sorry. I really want one.
Hi, my name's Yogesh. I'm from Safe Stay Hostels. But I guess in terms of the teams, did you find that Google Sheets was the most difficult thing to sort of transition over? You know, I guess you mentioned there's multiple teams working in Google Drive, for example, or Slides or Docs. Was it that the finance team was the most difficult and the challenging? And if not, which other department did you find challenging?
So no, in short answer, no, finance wasn't the most difficult, and we were quite fortunate that our FD, she's already used it.
Like we buy in from the finance team, which is from the beginning.
But Sim in particular had experience, so she'd gone through some of this in her own sort of, her own sort of life, exploring it. So she could quite easily mentor the rest of the team and bring them on that journey. Stop being so restricted by what you've done over the past 20 years and think about how you need to work in the future as well. Synchronized drives, those kind of tools work seamlessly as services.
You guys use Drive File Stream as well. I didn't mention Drive File Stream, but it's a sort of a synchronization tool that allows you to sync your documents down onto your computer that are in Google Drive, and it streams a file, so it only sort of syncs down or pushes down the files that you need, so it doesn't take up space on your or as much space on your drive. So you could have 70 terabytes if you wanted in your Google Drive, and it would only sync down the documents you're using. And that made it a little bit more seamless for users. Yeah. And we went through the shots that Tim used were, I actually took those photos. It was in the labs that we ran, the sort of mini transformation labs. And so I think that piece of bringing the team along with you that Tim mentioned earlier is hugely important. And so it wasn't just training and support that you guys did do and put a lot of money and resources into that, but it was also we asked their opinion. And so they were actually involved in developing the solution that was eventually implemented in the business. So that meant that it wasn't like, oh, who are the IT team doing this, or who are the executive management doing this. They've been brought along as part of the process. And so, I don't know if you've anything to add to that. But
I think Gmail, Outlook to Gmail was the other big one. you know, because
that's the next question. But go for it.
Sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
Outlook to Gmail. How did that go?
I think it was 50-50. I think a lot of people didn't like the change of interface
Yeah.
because they were so used to Outlook and the very, very simple mail on their iPhones and things like that. But that quickly, as they realized how powerful Gmail was and how you could style it and use it how you wanted to use it, it's like, wow, this is brilliant. This is just great. And everyone is, some people still go, I don't like the way it looks. But
I don't like X or Y. Or
yeah, there's
particular.
one or two people, but that adoption just, it was that was quite difficult, but it was dealt with very quickly as well at the same time.
Yeah.
I just have a question around the whole process itself. So once you signed on the dotted line, what was the timeline for, you know, the collaborative lab sessions to then actually having the implementation where, you know, you were pretty much saying, okay, we can sit back now, this is done, the team can start working on this?
I don't know, did
What's
you
the
guys
sort of
migrate,
timeline?
was it last week, was it? I'm kidding.
It finished migrating last week.
Yeah, yeah. It is, sorry, did you have more to your question there?
No, just I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, what's the timelines
Yeah,
and how
it's
does
sort
it?
of, you know, from the moment you start to the
Yeah.
moment where you can say, you know, you're happy enough, or where does your work finish essentially?
Yeah, no, it's a good
as a
question.
partner?
Our work is never done.
We phased it, which is quite.
Yeah, the
really good
phase approach
Yeah.
did work well, particularly when you've got drive. So if you've got a sort of a drive element, and it depends on where customers enter the product. So I feel like we're forgetting about this side of the room. Sorry. So sometimes customers will enter from the mail calendar side. They want to replace an Exchange server, or maybe they enter from the collaboration side where they want to replace sort of a file server or some sort of Google Drive collaborative environment. So it really depends on where you start the journey, and I kind of mentioned that in my slide deck, or my talk. But I think, you know, really it's about in terms of timelines, it's about the different elements of a migration. So how big is your organization? Obviously is a huge element. How quickly do you need or want to migrate over? What particular tools are you using? And we would go through a deployment planning workshop. So Colin and the technical team would go through a deployment planning workshop with a company to figure out what your particular migration process was. So for Start Design, it was a two-phase approach. That may not have worked for everybody. But for their particular migration, it made sense. You guys had a lot of consumer Google accounts as well, what we call unmanaged accounts that had to be brought under the control of the company. So that was actually almost a third phase or pre-phase, do you know what I mean, that we had to do. So each deployment will have its own challenges, but Google has a 90-day plan that for any migration you should be able to do it within sort of a 90 to 120 days, even like 120 days, even for like 100,000 users, do you know what I mean? And again, it depends on data migration and change management. A lot of the stuff that will determine the delay of a project is very often not the migration, it's very often the change management piece, you know.
I was going to say that. I think
Training.
that was really important for us because we didn't know the best way to manage the expectations internally and how that the adoption.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really important part that DAMS and Cloud provided, was a toolkit to do that. When do we notify people? What language do we use? How often?
It's an internal marketing exercise, you know, and we're like, we will, if a customer says we want to deploy but we don't want change management, we won't do the project. You know, we'll walk away because it will fail. Do you know what I mean? There's an interesting slide that Google have where they have the little pie chart of the different elements of a Google migration, of a G Suite migration, and it's project management, deployment or sort of technical skills or element, and then change management and support ramp up is about 5%. And when we started working with Google, the change management element I think was about sort of 15-20%. And over the last 10 years, I said we've been a partner for 10 years, it's grown and now it's 35%. It's now the largest part of a deployment because you know the technical stuff and the project management stuff, you can get that right. We have the tools to do that. If you don't bring the users along with you, that's it. You've failed before you've started. You know, you can migrate all the data perfectly, but if the users don't want to use the product, you know, it doesn't matter.
What are the key things that you manage within the change management aspect of it? If you had to say 3 key things that you would do to bring the users along, what would they be?
We have a whole deck on change management that would probably take the morning to go through. But no, if I was to sort of pick three, I think it would be communication. You know, you cannot over communicate, you know, and when I say communication, I don't mean email. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously that's part of it. I mean posters. I mean, like the last migration we did with a customer for Happio, the sort of Google integration project, we actually did a video. We actually came out and our team actually recorded a full video, and it presented the product and why they were moving to it, because there was over 1,000 people in the business, so it was an easy way to disseminate the information. So we would do posters, we would do email, we would do announcement, and we tried to coordinate all of those. So communication is really key. Executive sponsorship. You can't run a project, a Google project, or any transformation project, not just Google, without having executive sponsorship. So there needs to be. It was mentioned in our very first, you know, when we were doing our little question at the start, the leadership team. You know, you need to have someone on the executive board. This isn't an IT project. You know, it might start in IT, and there might be technical aspects. But this is a change project, and so, you know, if your CEO is willing to announce it, that's the best. And if not, then CIO, CTO level. But it needs to be as high up in the business as you can go. And then probably training, I suppose, would be the third one if you're making me pick three. I don't know. Colin, you're making a face. Have you something to add?
That was a face of approval.
What?
That was a face of approval and agreement.
That's your approval face? Okay. That's good to know.
It's a problem I've got.
Remember that one.
Yeah. Did you get that on camera? Sorry, just before I finish, did you have anything to follow up on? Do you want to hand the mic to? Thanks.
Hi, I'm
I think
Pradeep
the gentleman
from
at the back
Pelicans
after.
Group. Just expanding on his question.
Can you just let us know where you're from?
I'm
I know you've asked a few questions.
I'm
but
Pradeep from Pelicans Group.
Thanks.
Just expanding on his question, you know, on the financials, the financial team uses spreadsheets, Google Sheets. How do you link it with your internal accounting systems? Because that's one of the major hindrance in adapting Google Sheets over Excel spreadsheets, because it's always a challenge to have the live updated data. Then that means you're maintaining two different systems within the process.
Absolutely.
How did you overcome that?
We haven't, but they were going through that exact process right now. So we are, that was the next phase of our work, is to look at an accountancy package that can manage our work streams, our resource management, tasks, and budgeting, invoicing across a group of companies, not just a single entity. Start isn't just one company,
Yeah, you guys have
and locations. So we need to find a product, and I think Dale Tech or someone like that has created a new suite of products, enhanced their products, which now has Google integration. So we're exploring how that, so we don't have to enter numbers twice.
Yeah.
Have you zeroed in on any applications?
That one, I think it's Dale Tech Workbook, Dale Tech Workbook. I can't remember, there's another name for the actual accountancy package which they've combined together. It was a WPP product, I think. We looked at Xero. We looked at, I think we're also going to look at one called... it's a spice. Named after a spice or something.
Spiceworks one. We use Xero ourselves,
Yeah.
and it's got some Google integrations.
Yeah, and that looked good, especially from a price point of view, but it wouldn't satisfy all the needs of the different companies.
I think that's something that you end up doing, isn't it? You end up looking for, you know, when you're looking at a solution, you want to know, you know, is it mobile friendly? Does it tick all these boxes? Does it have a Google integration? That's now part of your decision-making process.
And we're working, you know, across projects in across sort of UK and Dubai as well, and we have different currencies, and we need to be able to manage that whole process as well. So we are zeroing in, and so Workbook looks like the one we're going to go with, but we just need to do a little bit more due diligence on that. There's a question at the back over there.
I'm just going to...
Paprika. Have you used it?
You knew it was some sort of spice.
Okay. Oh, great to get your thoughts on that.
Excellent.
Paprika. I knew it was a spice.
Yeah, I just wanna be fair, so I'm just gonna take one question from here, and I think did you have a question? Yeah, and then yourself. This is a Jamboard one. Do you need a Gmail or Google account to join a jam?
Yes, you do.
You need but it could be a personal.
Yeah,
Personal.
yeah. So it doesn't have to be a paid account. It can be a personal Gmail account. You can join that way.
And just while this is a simple follow-up one, can you connect several Jamboards together?
Yes, you can.
Really know what the person meant by that? Do they mean
50 Jamboards together?
50 Jamboards?
Yeah.
Wow. They didn't mean strapped together as a raft, no. In a technological way. Excellent. All right. Can we get this gentleman a mic here, just behind you there?
Massively useful for sharing both documents and live updating clients when you have an update for them instead of sending an attachment PowerPoint. What are there any use cases that any of you have encountered where you've been able to successfully do that, perhaps where a client has been a little agnostic to using the system before, or is there
using an
a simple,
older,
exactly, is there a
different
simplified version
product
of getting them to commit to the sharing that you've managed to succeed?
Yeah, so there's different ways to do it. There's the kind of example that Tim has, and we would work with customers that would kind of be, you might do a mini workshop or something to figure out what are the workflows that you're trying to do. What's the balance between security and convenience that I was talking about earlier on, and figure out what's the solution within G Suite that makes the most sense, for whatever the use case is. And very often we've done 200, 250 Google migrations and worked with hundreds of customers. We've probably come across it before, and so we can generally help customers just do that faster. Do you know what I mean? And so you could set up in a couple of different ways. Now with Team Drives, you could do a team drive. You could have them set up personal Google or Gmail accounts. They just need a Google account. It doesn't have to be a business one, and then they could join that, and you could then still secure and see who has access to it. Within the My Drive environment, which is not Team Drives, you could share via the link. There's obviously an inherent lower security level within that because it's not individuals that you're sharing with, it's via the link and they could share it on. Not very much different from emailing an attachment, I have to say, but I would prefer, if there was a way to do it, to move towards the Team Drive environment. I've also seen customers set up accounts for contractors. Doesn't necessarily have to be an account for every single person in the contractor, could just be, whatever that company's called, at yourdomain.com. We do that within Damson sometimes. And so then at least there's still an account that you can remove access from. And so there's multiple ways to do it, but you need to know how to do it. So I mean, that's again where we would kind of help out with that. Any follow-up questions on that, or does that all make sense?
Perfect, thank you.
I want to make sure we go to this gentleman here.
Hi, I'm Simon from Down Under Geo Solutions. Mine are quite a geeky question. So the first one is...
You were at least one of the techies in the room.
Yeah. So we use mostly Linux as desktops, and we haven't got a good way of syncing files up to the drive. Is there one? Are we missing something?
There are third parties. So Google don't make a sync tool. The sort of drive file stream tool doesn't, as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, other Googlers in the room, doesn't have a client for Linux. The old one I think did, but I don't think the drive file stream does. There is some third-party tools or third-party companies that make sync tools for Google, and one of them does a Linux client that's actually excellent. We used it for syncing some of the server data actually from the initial Dubai team because they wanted to continue to work on it. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Carl, do you? I know I'm putting you on the spot. No, it's not going to come to
I can't remember it either, but it's easy to find and it's got a lot of extra
I might just ping Donal in the thing and just see. Well, I'm going to come back to you. Do you have another question while I look this up?
I have 3 questions, so
Cool.
I'll try and get them. The next one's probably quite easy. So how does the video conferencing in Google Suite compare to things like Zoom?
Compared to things like Zoom?
Zoom, yeah.
Sorry. Carl, will you just ping the G Suite line script and just ask? Yeah. I mean, it would depend on what you're kind of comparing within it, bandwidth stuff. I find personally the Hangouts one definitely better than tools like Skype and stuff like that. And we've had a lot of customers move from Skype to Hangouts. I've had less customers move from Zoom. I think it's kind of a newer product on the market to Google. I've some customers that use both Zoom and Google. I don't know. Have you guys used the Zoom product as well?
No, we've got a peer-to-peer video conferencing which we use between the three offices, and then we use Hangouts, and Hangouts has proved to be absolutely brilliant. The only downside is when you've got people joining from cafes.
Background noise.
So the background noise.
Like a video conference issue. Yeah.
So there's just just being aware of those kind of things. Other than that, it works really well, especially when you're sharing stuff on screen and messaging in in that meeting as well over the video. It works really well. I guess and I've done it over my mobile phone, over data as well, so it adapts really well to that.
Yeah, and just to kind of jump in there. BenQ as an organisation, we've got offices in 30 countries globally, over 100,000 employees, and we have tried every video conferencing solution on the market. Meet and the Hangout Meet side of things has been the only one for all of us that's actually worked. It works well. It works well from a device or from a more desktop-based environment. The actual Meet kits, so the physical hardware, is really easy to use. Our financial controller is, bless her, not particularly tech savvy, but she can walk into a scheduled meeting, hit the button on the screen in our meeting room and join a call with Taipei, with our headquarters there. So for us, it's actually been the most consistent platform and the easiest one to use. So we've adopted it across the business, even though we're a traditional Microsoft house, and actually we started with Skype, Zoom. We were using all different platforms, but we've now standardized.
We remembered the name of the tool. I think that's really interesting. I didn't realize BenQ used it.
It's very good
internationally.
And the last question is: so we deal with very high resolution images, 15748 by 322, and that. For us, the image is describing the geological data that's found, so the quality of that is very important. And the team are finding that when they are either putting it into a document or going from G Suite to try and produce a PDF for the client, that there's a loss of information in that picture, which then unfortunately makes it useless for the end client.
Is it going from Google Photos or Drive to? Give me the products it's going to and from again.
This is the only thing I didn't do before I left. I didn't get someone to work me through the whole process. So there's an image created. I don't know what format the image is. It's then put into a document and then would be so hopefully on Google Drive, preferably on Google Drives, and then turned into a PDF to send off to the
Actually, you guys had the same challenge. This is the tool, by the way, InSync, not the band from the 90s. If anyone wants to jot that down, it does all of the different products, including Linux. So it's just one of the Drive file stream tool I found to be better, but that one just works for Linux. I know there's a couple of Linux users. So.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure we came back on that. Yeah, you guys had that. I actually came up in one of the workshops, I remember, where the design team would have images that were put into a document or slide, and that, like that with any system, when you import an image into it, it's not the full image. It compresses it into a smaller version of it, and they basically added links to the originals that were stored in Google Drive. That was how they got around.
Yeah, we could do it as a preview. I think there's an auto compress as well. I think setting somewhere in slides, or an auto compress somewhere,
so that you can
turn it off. But I think also the size of the canvas in slides is automatically, whilst it's widescreen, it's quite a low resolution, but you can create custom artboards, but I'm not sure of what size the maximum size is, because I think that would help bringing in large.
What we did was just work at I remember with that particular team just working at a workflow really, and just saying as part of the workflow they also have the original file and put in the link to that, and so that was a way that people could go back to the original image that they might require for, editing purposes.
And you could create that environment, you could create that locked down environment within Team Drive so that people could access the full res image but not get to anything else either. So that'd be that kind of thumbnail approach might be a good idea to do.
Is that kind of, if that doesn't answer your question, maybe we could follow up with you and get more information on the particular issue.
Yeah, follow up would be good because it's.
Yeah.
We want to adopt it. We're using LibreOffice, which. Functions, but is a car crash of an app application.
No, we've got to sort that out for you. Definitely, got to get you away from that. Maybe we could follow up, and I'm sure we can solve that particular challenge.